Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about 2 soundtracks from the world of video games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is Joe DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games they come from without getting too bogged down in music theory. Up first this week for our 2 games is 2007's Pokémon Diamond and Pearl, the first DS installment of the mainline JRPG series, which makes special use of jazz and heavy bass lines.
After that, it's Atlus's supernatural high school drama with its heavy themes of loss and courage in the face of helplessness, 2006's Persona 3.
So, if we're trying to string together a theme of games this week, we didn't really pick it per se. It's more that your game is tied to a release coming out this week, as of episode release, and then Pokemon, it somehow just fell into our lap where we're recording coming off of a business strategy meeting, and then tomorrow, as of release, there's a 15-minute Pokemon Sword and Shield Direct, so that just happened, but honestly, it wasn't planned and all that. So these are JRPGs that start with P, that have compendiums, Pokedexes of monsters that you fill in. I guess we can make it work. They're kind of released around the same time as far as years. It works.
No, I got you. Shin Megami Tensei at one point had 2 games that were Pokemon clones called Demi-Kids. It all connects.
It just works just like that. Well, let's start with this week's first game. It is the aforementioned Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Now, it's interesting to bring up when we're talking about Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and we're saying, oh yeah, it's Gen 4. And those who have not played Pokemon are just like, what the heck are you talking about? So Pokemon Diamond and Pearl is considered part of the 4th generation of mainline Pokemon games. This is the generation that began at the onset of the Nintendo DS, line of systems. So when we talk about the concept of generations, what does that mean? As a quick recap, basic sort of just knowledge base here. Of course, we're talking about Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, the originals. Red and Green if you're talking in Japan. But as far as westward, US, North America, Europe, Red, Blue, Yellow is Generation 1 on Game Boy. Generation 2 is Gold, Silver, Crystal. It's on Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Woo! Then we move to, I started with Gen 1. I'm taking a Gen 2er.
I started with Gen 2, yes.
Then some started with Gen 3. That's over on Game Boy Advance. So that's Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. You also had the Gen 1 remakes of Fire Red and Leaf Green. We move over to Gen 4, and this is where Pokemon Diamond and Pearl comes in on Nintendo DS. They also had the Platinum 3rd game, and also the Gen 2 remakes of Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Also, woo!
Also, the best games. The best Pokemon mainline games, if you're ever wondering. Then we get to Gen 5, it's Black and White 2. Gen 6 is X and Y. You also had the Gen 3 remakes here with Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. Gen 7, you may remember recently, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And now Gen 8 this year, Sword and Shield. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about Generation 4. So Diamond and Pearl released on September 28th, 2006 in Japan. And then April 22nd, 2007 in North America. That's back at the time where there was the distinct gap of release for translation. Now they kind of try to hit a worldwide launch to try to cater as many languages as possible, but not so back in these days. Australia hit it in June 2007 and Europe in July 2007. This was also the last time, but also still a time when there was the expanded 3rd game, the Director's Cut game, and this was Pokemon Platinum. That was released in Japan on September 13th, 2008, almost 2 years later. And then the US in March 22nd, 2009, also almost 2 years later. Australia and Europe, May 2009 for Platinum. Game Freak develops the mainline Pokemon games as usual. They're considered a second party to Nintendo because Pokemon Company publishes along with Nintendo. Not a Nintendo-owned company, but a company that likes to do a whole lot of business with Nintendo, and they're very close in that sense. And I know second party is kind of a weird misnomer in the industry, but people generally like to peg Game Freak around there. So Pokemon at its core, if you're not aware, at least the mainline series of games, it's a JRPG, Japanese role-playing game. It's got a top-down third-person camera where you as a Pokemon trainer, you battle and collect monsters through random or scripted events. And then you encounter other trainers, and then you battle them with those monsters. Like most mainline Pokemon games, the plot generally involves the journey of the main playable character, the main trainer, and just overall the course of their journey, from receiving their starter Pokemon to becoming a Pokemon master. All along the way, you generally thwart a criminal organization. For Diamond and Pearl in the land of Sinnoh for this adventure, as opposed to you have Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola, and now Galar here soon for Sword and Shield.
This is the last one based on a region of Japan too, right?
Yes, that's correct. So yeah, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, all Japan, but Sinnoh here based on the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido. And so there's a lot of snow. There's a big mountain that splits the region into west and east. So yeah, once you get to Unova and Gen 5, it's, New York, and then you get Paris with Kalos, and Hawaii with Alola, and England with Galar. So yeah, we're starting to get a little more worldwide, but that kind of just shows, the sign of the times and how worldwide Pokemon had really become, honestly.
Also, they ran out of Japan.
Yeah, there's not too much of Japan there. You're absolutely right. So yes, it is the land of Sinnoh for Diamond and Pearl here for Gen 4, where Professor Rowan allows the player to begin their journey with either a Turtwig, a Chimchar, or a Piplup. And you have, of course, Team Galactic, who wants to build a new universe in their vision by using a Pokemon from Legend. Joe, how much experience do you have with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl and or Platinum?
I played Pearl before I even knew you.
It's a long time ago.
A long, long while since I played a single Sinnoh game. It's on the list for Smash Pieces, Platinum is, so I will have to replay it soon. But my memories of Pearl are few and far between. It was one of the first games I bought when I was finally able to get a DS. Again, that was a long time ago. Black and white weren't even things that any of us could consider at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big difference. I mean, 2007 for us, for Diamond and Pearl, 2009 for Platinum, then 2011 was black and white. So significant couple year jumps, whereas after that, it was yearly basis for new Pokemon games. It sounds very similar to my experience. I played Pearl as well. I also bought a DS Lite at the time, just to play Pokemon Pearl. So yeah, it sounds very similar in that regard. But Pokemon definitely grew a lot from Generation 3 with Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald to Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. And it's really because of the DS. And you had the inclusion of 107 new Pokemon, which brought the total up to 493.
That's cute.
Which, now it's 807 if you don't include Meltan and Melmetal and these 3 new Galar starters. And maybe we'll get those evolutions at the Pokemon Direct coming up here very soon. It was also kind of sad that I was able to pull 493 from my memory bank at the time. I didn't need to look that up to research and confirm. I was like, oh yeah, Arceus is number 493. I'm a big nerd. Hi, how you doing?
You saw that study that came out recently where they were researchers found that people in our generation have a specific part of their brain dedicated to Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
The best people do, honestly. If you're new to me and my podcast and all, Pokemon's big in my video game history. Played Red and Blue as the first video games I owned, Blue specifically. Ash Ketchum, when that anime and game came out, 1998, he's a 10-year-old kid. I was a 10-year-old kid. Like, Pokemon has been ride or die with me ever since. So I'm happy to talk about this game, but honestly, Diamond and Pearl wasn't the game I thought I'd be talking about. And I'll get to more of that in a little bit here. But to kind of flesh out what makes Diamond and Pearl kind of special as the first Pokemon games, the mainline series game on Nintendo DS, it's really the features that really allow the Pokemon series to change, and it's all based on the DS there. But first of all, I do have to mention, though, when we're talking about all those creatures, I found it interesting in the note in the research that the Diamond and Pearl series includes the most new legendaries of the series. And so there's just a lot of legendaries in general, but specifically, and we have to highlight, Dialga, who is a creature based on time, and he's on the box art for Diamond. And then you have Palkia, who's a creature of space, and he's on the box art for Pearl. And of course, the aforementioned Arceus, who is the god of all Pokemon. And that was a big deal at the time. And he has his own theme music, and it's spooky.
And he got mentioned in House.
He's not in prison, and it's kind of hard to gas a guy unless you can seal him in a room first.
Which is why Arceus created a universe with 3 states of matter
and 300 solid and liquid poisons that could cause his symptoms.
Arceus?
Look it up.
Well, damn, I did not know that. Anyway, let's get back to those DS features. So honestly, with the DS and the touchscreen, like that just kind of opened the door for new ways to play Pokemon games that had never really been considered before. And they used the Pokétch to do that. And that's their way for it to say it's a simulated smartwatch in the game where you can have up to 25 different apps, which is, a time before smartphones and the iPhone and all that and smartwatches that we have today. But up to 25 apps were available that you could kind of cycle through when you're in the overworld and you're not in battle. You just have a variety of different sort of features at your disposable use. Some of the most helpful ones I remember were the friendship checker, daycare checker. There's a pedometer. So daycare and pedometer, super useful for hatching eggs and breeding and all that stuff. There's a +1 counter, so just add a little +1. And then a marking map, so you can kind of see your position on the map and draw little symbols and whatnot. Of course, with the internal clock on the DS, the day-night cycle returned to the Pokemon series after being absent in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. And players could also import creatures from the Gen 3 games of Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, from Fire Red, Leaf Green, doing that through the Game Boy Advance port that was on the DS Lite. So that was, remember that feature? That's a super, super helpful thing that the DS had at the time.
It also made it so that, like, if you had one of those games in the GBA slot, if I remember correctly, there were certain areas where you could only get encounters with certain Pokemon if you had that specific game in the port.
I feel like that may have been more of like a Gen 3 thing, but I think you're right. It may have been a thing for Gen 4 as well. There was some Pokemon game where, you had those the Fire Red, Leaf Green games in there, and you'd get some Kanto spawns. Yeah, so it's a really cool feature, absolutely. And of course, the DS being a Wi-Fi connected system, I mean, all of us old farts kind of remember, the days of battling and trading with cables, whether it's through Game Boys, Game Boy Colors, Game Boy Advance.
I never had a link cable.
Oh, no. That's sad. I mean, I have memories of sitting at a sports arena with a friend and trying to flesh out all the Eevee evolutions on our Pokédex. I have good memories of that. But yeah, with Wi-Fi, I mean, whether it's local infrared and all that, which is also, of course, another option for local play. But you had the global trade system. You had battling online. I mean, that was a first for the series. And Diamond and Pearl is also considered the entry with the most connectivity to other Pokemon games, including the last stadium-like game of Pokemon Battle Revolution on the Wii, which was also one of the first Wi-Fi connected games on the North American market for Wii. So another, it's just advancements that the DS allowed for. So I think Gen 4 is one of my favorites in the whole series, primarily because of Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and how just flat out great that game is. but I think it's a big one, specifically how it finally appropriately handled the split of physical and special moves, like tying it based on what the move is itself and what the move's properties are. Is it a punch? Is it a beam blast? Like, what is it? Versus saying, oh, well, if it's this type, fire, poison, grass, water, whatever, like, don't have the the physical or special split be based on that. Have it be based on the move. And like, that was the best thing that Pokemon has like ever advanced on, I think.
I wasn't aware that was Gen 4. Huh.
Yeah, that was a thing there. I mean, I think Gen 3's big thing, to be honest, is like the inclusion of how they handled new calculations of IVs as well as the natures. Like, that brought a whole new way to recalculate kind of Pokemon statistics and all that. Like, that was Gen 3's big thing, and that's why, you know, going back to Gen 1 and Gen 2 is a problem to bring them forward, because it's a whole different calculation. They handle IVs totally differently. Not to get down the big old Pokemon nerd rabbit hole, but yeah, that's a whole thing. I feel like for people my age, Gen 4 is kind of where I, at least, and maybe others my age, start to get a little hazy on the gym leaders and their order. Like, as time passes, like the newer games, I just forget more and more about, like, oh, who are these gym leaders? Like, maybe if it's more from your youth, you like remember, then maybe it's like the anime. I don't know, that helps with it. Oh gosh, if I had to remember based on my research the last couple days, it's Rourke who's rock, it's Gardenia who's grass, it's Maylene who's fighting, Crasher Wake is water, Fantina is ghost, Byron is steel, Candace is ice, Volkner is electric. Before researching, like, I just happen to have a good short-term memory, because the long-term, it was just not there.
I don't remember any of them either until you said their names, in which about a little over half of them, I have a picture of what they look like, because I remember Crasher Wake now. I didn't until 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, and he's a crazy man. Like, let's be honest. But I'm going to put it out there for people listening at home. Do you remember the Elite Four in Gen 4 in Diamond and Pearl? Yes, you're right. Cynthia is a badass champion, but just, I'm going to pause the podcast. Who's the Elite Four in this game? Like, I had no idea that it's Aaron, who's a bug type, Bertha, the ground type, Flint, the fire type, and Lucian, who's psychic. Yeah, okay, it's like, yeah, you name them. It's like, okay, I can kind of picture what they look like, but no way in hell was I, pulling those out. So just over time, like, you start to forget more and more, and that's just comes with getting old, I think.
But God forbid I should ever not be able to name a single Pokemon that I see ever, even though there are 800 of them.
Right, yeah, and you'll have that spot in your brain for creatures, but not fictional people. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl development began when it was announced at a Nintendo press conference in the fourth quarter of 2004. It was expected to ship in 2005 in Japan, but then it was pushed to 2006. When it came out, it was reviewed decently well, with a Metacritic average of about 85. As far as how it sold really well, as you'd expect a DS Pokemon game to do. 1 million copies were sold in the US over 5 days. It was the first DS game that, when combined, shipped over 5 million units. And it's sold over 18 million copies to date, which is more than Ruby and Sapphire, the games that preceded it. Even Fire Red and Leaf Green, the GBA, Gen 1 remakes. And then even more than Black and White. So Diamond and Pearl is a pretty big deal. And so now that leads us to Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is kicking off Generation 8 in fall 2019, at least as far as we know. For Nintendo Switch, there's a Direct tomorrow. Check it out, 15 minutes long as of this episode's launch. And yeah, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, I wanted to talk about it because, like, they're the next main series installments to be remade if that trend continues.
You like, because as he mentioned earlier, we're recording the day after that business strategy meeting. Mm-hmm. And I remember you messaged me, was like, we're going to look like geniuses if they announce a Diamond and Pearl remake tonight.
And they didn't. We got a gacha game instead.
And Pokemon Sleep.
Yeah.
Don't forget Pokemon Sleep.
Pokemon Let's Go Home to Sleep. Shout out to whoever first thought of that on Twitter. Yeah, so I mean, I could see maybe like a Let's Go Johto in fall 2020, or a Sinnoh remake. I mean, I think those are the next two ones. If you're talking about after Sword and Shield, like you could go with either of them. But wanted to talk about Diamond and Pearl. And usually when you think of Pokemon music, if you're a Pokemon fan, you think Pokemon game music, you think of Junichi Masuda. And he's also the Pokemon game director for many of these games. He still does the music for like almost all of the battle themes in the mainline series. But because I wanted to talk about Diamond and Pearl, which is a game I don't think of too often in the different generation lineup, Go Ichinose is the lead composer, at least getting top billing as far as on the composer list for Diamond and Pearl. So we'll talk about Masuda another time, I'm sure. If we want to go back and talk about, let's talk about Pokemon Red and Blue and those Game Boy bleeps and bloops, we'll talk about Masuda then, certainly. But we'll talk about Go Ichinose now. Go Ichinose doesn't have a birth date or location info listed anywhere. And I feel like that type of secrecy is really, we found it to be like a Japanese thing so far. And, kudos to them if you still can keep that secret online, but it's just an odd thing to come across.
I'm actually kind of surprised by how little it's been an issue for us overall. But when it does happen, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Because that's usually a bad sign.
Right. And like you can't even guess like how old they are, like, and you can kind of scale up when were these different accomplishments, at what point in their career. Like sometimes that helps, like it helps inspire people. I don't know. I found interesting stories about Go Ichinose from whether it was interviews or stories that he was sharing, saying how when he was young in kindergarten, his parents made him attend a swimming class and a music class. And he would just cry the whole time during the swimming class and just cry. But he loved the music class. He just didn't do the homework. So the teachers wouldn't let him advance and really move forward. But because of this interest, he would learn how to play the piano because of this interest. And he really only practiced on piano the pieces that he personally liked. Some of these would be very complicated works. So have a lot of practice, a lot of diligence. I mean, Chopin was a favorite. And of course, Chopin got some crazy piano sonatas. So found that interesting. He also had thoughts on prenatal care and prenatal listening. He had a quote where he said, "Once while we were moving, I discovered a record for prenatal care in our house. Apparently, it was music I used to hear when I was still an unborn child. When I checked the playlist, I realized it was full of pieces that I had selected to play on the piano." So when you talk about people like, oh, I will only play this type of music for my baby when he's in the womb. According to Ichinose, it's like the music that I listened to when I was in my mother's womb were the tunes that I was drawn to play on piano. I just found that fascinating.
That's cursed.
I mean, at least there seemed to be good music and not like I was listening to death metal and that's why I learned guitar and I'd shred away when I was a young kid. Nothing wrong with that, but
there's some alternate universe though where we're talking about Go Ichinose, the Olympic swimmer,
and he just cries when he's playing piano instead.
I find that really funny.
His appreciation for game music, though, began in junior high school, where, the Famicom and the Game Center were big at the time in Japan. And he would go and hold recording devices up to those TVs, up to those game systems, so that he would record the music and then later bring it back to the piano and then learn how to play those tunes on piano. And you know what? For the technology at the time, yeah, man, make it happen. Like, that sounds like something I would have done if I were in his position and, trying to learn music.
100% same.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting to see when he ended up joining Game Freak in 1993, he originally went there to work as a programmer and a planner. I mean, just to kind of flesh out and expand his career qualifications. He really didn't think about being a music composer until he became a music composer at Game Freak in 1996. And he really hasn't looked back, especially when the aforementioned Junichi Masuda asked Go Ichinose to work alongside him for composing on Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver. So, I mean, from there, Ichinose has been very involved in the Pokemon series. he mentioned how he doesn't really work too well under time crunch when it comes to inspiration, that he does his best thinking in the shower, and he usually comes up with the melody first, just as far as how different inspirations flow to him. His favorite Pokemon appears to be Charizard, at least according to the plushie that is his Twitter icon avatar. So found that interesting. And just as far as him contributing to Pokemon and what it means to him, he says, quote, "Since Pokemon is a game millions of people play, the tracks included in it are heard by millions of people as well. In that regard, it's a production which exerts a lot of influence. I'd be happy if game fans as well as anime fans looked back at Pokemon music with fond memories when hearing live performances." And I know that's something I sure do. I absolutely do. This was made more in the context of when they released that big anime music collection. They had an interview with different people involved in Pokemon music composition. But yeah, Pokemon music is a big deal, and he's certainly had a hand in it, whether it's composing for Pokemon Pinball, Gold, Silver, Crystal, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire, Red, Leaf, Green, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart, Gold, Soul, Silver, Black, White, Black and White 2. He took a break for X and Y, but he came back with Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon. I mean, so many of these he's contributed to or led the sound teams for. He also worked on the sound effects for Gen 3, but then moved up to the cries for Gens 4 and 5. So for Diamond and Pearl, not only did he compose a whole lot of music, but also the Pokemon cries with the expanded sound set of Nintendo DS. He also composed for games outside of the Pokemon franchise for Game Freak, including Drill Dozer and Pocket Card Jockey. There wasn't too much history as far as the development of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl in its history, really because it's just Nintendo. It's one of those like, all right, then keep your secrets sort of things. But as I mentioned before, it's Masato who usually think of as the main composer of the Pokemon series. And yeah, he does all the battle themes, as you'll see, as in plenty of the Critical 5 and so on here. But yeah, it is Go Ichinose as top billing. His main objective for Diamond and Pearl, though, was because of the expanded sounds on Nintendo DS, he wanted to try to create music that wasn't so Pokemon-like. And you can kind of hear that because this soundtrack is certainly more jazzy and more types of sounds than any other Pokemon mainline soundtrack that, ever really came before. So really just kind of expand on what Pokemon music really represents and what it really means. So while the audio went through a big drastic shift, the visuals kind of stayed the same. I mean, they kind of upgraded in the way you'd expect going from Game Boy Advance to DS. I mean, yeah, he added a little bit more of a 3D effect in a way, but wasn't too drastic. But yeah, the audio is certainly very different. Let's hear some examples of that. We'll get to the 5 critical tracks here. We'll start with Route 203. So this is a pretty early game route. It's almost kind of like a throwaway route. And when you consider some of these other Pokemon games that, they're happy little tunes, but I think this is a really good example of how this soundtrack really tries to push the boundaries of what you think of for a Pokemon tune. So the Route 203, it connects Jubilife City and Orberg City. It's where you have your first rival battle. So it's pretty early on in the game, and Orberg City is where the first gym is. You hear it in that saxophone. It isn't exact, but it's a really good example of how the DS tries to emulate real instruments on its sound chip. And yeah, it just has this jazz feel to it. It could have been just a throwaway sort of piece, but it really sticks with me. And I also want to throw out that, of course, with the day and night cycle, many of these tracks have day and night variations. I personally don't like the night ones that often. Sometimes they're slightly slower. More often than not, they're transposed to be a little flatter, and it just doesn't sound as good. So I'm going to use the day variations here where applicable. So this is Route 203 day technically. But yeah, it's a happy, upbeat, jazzy piece, and it's not like up there as best root music of all time, but I think it's important to show the style of this soundtrack.
It's not my favorite root song in the game, but like it's very good. I don't remember a lot of the root songs in the game, to be honest. And that's just a general thing in Pokemon for me.
Right.
When you think of Pokemon, you think of battle music. You think of some of the town songs. It's not really... Roots are kind of... It's the unfortunate side effect of, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of this place. I just want to move on.
Absolutely.
No more encounters.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. You're right. I mean, when you talk about the Pokemon mainline generation games, like there are certain songs you think of like of just kind of tentpole staples. It's the wild Pokemon battle, the trainer battle, the rival battle, the gym leader battle, champion battle, criminal boss battle, the legendary battle. Like these are just like, yeah, you're going to hit these points, every game in a lot of battles, but you want to get to those moments, not necessarily all of the filler in between.
Mm-hmm. And there are obviously like exceptions, like Route 1 in Gen 1 is one that many of us will never forget, but I could not whistle a single other Route name or Route song of that entire game. Okay, yeah, that one too. All right, you got me.
Is that Route 3, 4, something around there? I'm slipping a bit. I don't know.
I don't remember either.
But when we're talking about cities that are memorable in this game, I think there's one that really stands out apart from all the others, and it's Snow Point City. This one is composed by Hitomi Sato, also part of the composition team. Of course, it's a city that's covered in snow. What a shocker. And hey, the gym leader is Candace, who's an ice-type gym leader. Also, what a shocker. But, this is important because of how Sinnoh is the North Island. It's Hokkaido. It's, more snow with that mountain. The routes that approach Snow Point, I want to say it's Route 216 and 217. They're covered in snow. Granted, Diamond and Pearl, they're slow enough games, whether how they run or just the speed of the games, but you're trudging in snow slowly to make your way to Snow Point City, and then it's this nice, calming theme. I mean, it's a winter theme at its finest with, some piano, some electric piano accents. But yeah, you're just trudging through. And I found it interesting with Snow Point City, found this bit of trivia, that when you visit the city on January 12th, which is Junichi Masuda's birthday, the city's usual snow is replaced by this sparkling diamond dust weather effect. And it's like, that's pretty neat.
I also didn't know that. That is interesting. This is a very, very pretty piece, but it just speaks to the unfortunate part of Sinnoh being based on Hoenn is that the snow is all I remember.
Yep.
And it's why Sinnoh is one of my least favorite regions.
Mm-hmm.
Because all I remember is snow. That's all it is. It's a white void.
It is tedious as well, I get you. But yeah, it comes with gorgeous music, and it's certainly worth remembering. Again, so many great songs in the soundtrack, but these are certainly ones that stood out to me and I wanted you all to hear as well. But we got to get to some of those battles, and we got to get to the big criminal boss battle. It's Battle Team Galactic Boss. Of course, when it's a battle, it is composed by Junichi Masuda. This is against Cyrus. Cyrus wants to create a universe in his own image, whether it's in Diamond and uses Dialga to warp time, or Palkia and Pearl to warp space, or even if you get to Platinum and Giratina's in the distortion world, and oh boy, that's a whole mess there. It's just a really, really damn good battle track here. You got that rocking bass line that keeps everything together. It just has that right intensity and scale because, I mean, the Team Galactic, you have the grunt battle music, you have the admin battle music, but like this is boss, like cream of the crop here. So had to throw this one on there. It's always one I remember from this soundtrack.
We'll get to it when we get to Cutting Room Floor, but I actually think I prefer one of the other Team Galactic songs, so we'll get to that. But I do like this song a lot, just not nearly as much as the other one.
I think there's a really, really special song on this Critical 5, though, and it's one that is unlike, I'd say, any other Pokemon song out there. And if you know this soundtrack, you know I'm talking about Champion Cynthia. I mean, are you kidding me? This is one of the best solo piano pieces in games, bar none. Such mastery. I'm always impressed when I see people on YouTube playing this live. Like, thank you, Go Ichinose, for this one. Like, this is when you're talking to the champion Cynthia before the final battle. It's the prelude to the champion fight. It's seen as like her character theme, but it's such a small moment in the game, and yet it's one of the most remarkable pieces on this soundtrack.
And you know me. I like piano pieces.
I thought you'd like this one too. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of them. And this is, and like, it's also, the song's in Smash, isn't it?
Maybe as part of a song.
Oh, it's
like
part of the remix of this and her actual battle theme.
Okay.
Are put in the same sort of remix, I believe. It's in one of those. I don't know, but it's in Smash. I do know for a fact. But yeah, the song is rad.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for not being like a battle song. It's just like a about to battle song, which Pokemon doesn't do very often outside of just like short jingles that like, oh, you got a trainer, saw you, walked over to you, and there's a song playing for that. And
right.
That's about it.
It's so special. It had to be on here. And I really didn't want to follow it up with, the very next song that you hear, but I have to put Battle Champion on here. Of course, Junichi Masuda responsible for composing this battle theme against Cynthia. One of the best champions the series has ever had. Just one of the most formidable and one of the top champion themes in the series, honestly.
It's my second favorite one.
Lance is up. Lance is probably up there at the top. But, I mean, you can't knock this one. This one's super good. Those snare drums are doing work. That bass is kicking. It's going hard. So I really, really like this one. But that 1-2 punch of like the piano theme then hits you right in the gut with this. I mean, it's good, powerful stuff, man. Like, it really defines this soundtrack.
I still remember how hard that battle is.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Garchomp is not playing around.
No joke. I think one of the more difficult fights I've ever had with like, an end game thing is actually Getsis in Black and White with that Hydreigon, which it feels like it covers every sort of, no, I'll take that back. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Necrozma, crazy powered up. was
that
not
was really
not fair at all. But like that's a whole weird separate thing. As far as champion battles go, yeah, one of the tougher champion fights. Maybe Steven Stone's up there, maybe. But Cynthia is great champion, formidable, and a great tune here. What do you have on the cutting room floor?
I have Route 209. Which I wouldn't say is it must be my favorite because it's the only one that I still remember to this day. Part of that might be because it's in Smash, but its Smash remix is not great. And also that song shouldn't be in Smash because it doesn't fit a fight whatsoever.
It really doesn't.
But it sure is in Smash as of Brawl. But my other one is the regular Battle Team Galactic song. This is my favorite enemy team battle music in the series.
Interesting. I think I like Team Plasma's a little more from Black and White.
Plasma and Rocket are both up there. I think.
Yeah. I mean, this one's also very good. It kind of brings in a different melody than you'd hear in the Cyrus battle, the boss.
Actually, this might have been dethroned by Team Skull because I really like Team Skulls a lot.
Team Skull. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, just all the hand motions with me. Come on, hand motions. Team Skull. What?
When this game came out, this was like my top pick for this song better be in Brawl. This song better be in Brawl. And guess what? It was. And that remix also rules. So I love this song.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely a good one. Also, like, because of Smash Brothers and Brawlin at the time. Because, yeah, Brawlin was really picking from Diamond and Pearl. I mean, Lucario and all that's part of the legacy there. I had to put on my cutting room floor battle Dialga Palkia. And it's not a song I'm a fan of, but it's more like it's one that a lot of people remember about this game. It's one a lot of people associate with this game, and it's a fine enough song, but it's just not one I'd put in the critical 5, but it's okay enough.
I think I mainly like it for the Smash remix because it puts a lot more emphasis on the piano, I think, than the MIDI. It sounds better with like what sounds like a physical piano than it does with the DS MIDI piano. Just gives it a bit more volume.
And it's also nice when the Smash remix cuts to the Spear Pillar tune of the da 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 da. It's just a nice change of pace where they're two separate songs on the Diamond and Pearl soundtrack altogether. The one battle track that I wanted to try to fit into the critical 5 here, but just couldn't, is Battle, Azelf, Mexsprit, and Uxie. When you're encountering Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxie in the wild, they are roaming creatures, so you will encounter them at random because they move about the world so quickly. And so imagine when you're talking about the wild Pokemon encounter, and sidebar here, wild Pokemon encounter and trainer battle. Gym leader battle's pretty good, but the wild Pokemon and trainer battle, not the best for Gen 4.
I don't like the WoW Pokemon Battle song at all.
Yeah, so like that's why they're not here, even though they're generally staples of Pokemon soundtracks. They're just not the best in Gen 4. But I mean, just imagine when you're usually encountering a Pokemon in wild grass, it's like it's that kind of thing. But with this one, it's and the bass is kicking in, like it's hype. Like it is a hype tune to when you are not expecting to encounter these creatures, and just this, it keeps on building. It's nice. It's just the bass kick that it really goes into. Love it. But had to put it here on the cutting room floor.
If you like this song, if you go to the May It Rest in Peace YouTube channel, Poke Remix Studio.
Oh man, yeah.
Which is a fantastic channel, but that is sadly dead now. As far as I can tell, I don't think he's uploaded anything in like a year and a half.
It makes me feel bad, actually, that I haven't picked anything for the transition here. Damn it.
But he put up a version of this song with like a swing beat to it.
Ooh.
And it sounds so good.
Yeah. It's one of the special songs from this soundtrack. I mean, so many good songs overall. But what will I never forget about Pokemon Diamond and Pearl? Yeah, it's as you mentioned, and it may be very similar then for you. I mean, this is the game, it's the reason why I bought a DS Lite at the time. And when I did buy it, like the stock was so low around the holiday season that they only had pink DS Lites left. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm still going to buy one. I'll put stickers over it, fine, but it was a big haha sort of point in my older podcast days, but pink DS Lite, rocked it for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Playing Pokemon Pearl and other games on it, and no shame, man, no shame.
Sadly, I didn't buy one for Pokemon Pearl. It was still one of the first games that I bought for my DS, if I remember correctly, though my dad was super against it because he was on this big kick of like, you're too old for Pokemon.
Oh, I've been there, my friend.
I got yelled at when I bought Fire Red and Leaf Green at one point used because why are you still buying Pokemon? And it's like, because I want to. And now he's given up. Here I am on a podcast talking about Pokemon.
There you go.
In my spare time. And, but no, I bought my DS for Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2. And that game sucked. But yeah, I bought Diamond and Pearl, and I remember playing it at my mom's house back when my room was... I have very vivid memories of this in that my room was actually, I'm pretty sure, 2 floors above where I live right now. I don't know exactly where it is, but I'm pretty sure I live in the exact same building that I lived in back then.
Wow.
Just a different apartment. And my room was just this section of the living room that my mom had put up a curtain because it only had 2 bedrooms, the apartment, and I couldn't room with my sister anymore. We were getting too old for that.
Yeah.
So I remember fighting Cynthia and getting like really into it because it was not going well. Because again, she's hard. She's a really hard fight.
Yeah.
And just like trying to hide my hype / frustration from my mother, who was just right on the other side of a curtain and who didn't like me playing video games at the time. So that's what I'll never forget about Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah, no, it's Pokemon games are tied to special memories, I feel, if you grew up with them. And so hopefully we've passed that on to you. It's certainly a lot to talk about in a long time. So let's transition here. We'd like to highlight a fan remix, a fan cover of a song. And we can pull it from OC Remix. You can pull it from YouTube. I should have pulled it from Poke Remix Studio on YouTube. Absolutely. Go check that channel out.
We'll have another time to do that. It'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll talk about OC Remix today, and No Tux from OC Remix did a cover of Snow Point City that he titled Snowflakes in Her Hair. Really pretty piece. I like it a lot. I hope you do too. Check it out. We'll be right back.
let's talk about one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, it's like favorite franchise week here for me. I'm loving it.
Absolutely. This is my favorite franchise, bar none, 100%. I can't deny it. My smartwatch has a Persona face on it. My phone has a Persona background on it. I've got a Morgana plushie sitting right next to me. This is my favorite franchise, and I can't fight that. And I don't want to either, so there. We're going to talk about Persona 3, which is my second favorite game in the series.
Now, Joe, I mean, we've already talked about a Shoji Meguro game. I mean, we talked about Catherine. Aren't we going to talk about Shoji Meguro?
No, and if you want to hear about Shoji Meguro, you should actually go listen to the Catherine episode, because I'm not really going to talk about Shoji Meguro all that much.
Yeah, honestly, we'd like to try to talk about as many different composers as possible. And so I think we're going to try to be selective in who we talk about here. Maybe at some point we'll have to go back and be like, we want to really talk about this game, and it's been a guy we've talked about before. But
statistically, eventually we will have to repeat.
Yeah. But until that happens, we'll find ways around that. So let's talk about Persona 3.
Mine might be a bit of a stretch of a way around that, but let's talk about the game first. So, Persona 3 was a game released for the PlayStation 2 in July of 2006 in Japan, August of 2007 in America, and then in the fall of 2008 in Europe and Australia. And development started on it in 2004, right after the development on two other Shin Megami Tensei games, which Persona is a sub-series of Shin Megami Tensei, or at least it was. I don't think it's considered that anymore, because it's kind of broken past Shin Megami Tensei, and is actually probably more popular, much to old SMT fans' chagrin.
Absolutely.
But development of Persona 3 started directly after the development wrapped up on Nocturne and Digital Devil Saga. It was not actually shown to the public until March of 2006. Reminder that I just told you the game came out in July of 2006. Can you imagine that happening today?
I mean, in a way, I'd kind of like it to.
I'd love for it to be that way today, but like, that's unthinkable today. Like, imagine if Nintendo was like, all right, Pokemon's coming out. It'll be out in 2 months. And it wasn't, obviously, this wasn't in like a stream or anything either. It was in Famitsu.
Oh, interesting.
It just showed up in a Famitsu spread, and all it showed was it detailed the release date, introduced the protagonist, as well as the characters of Junpei Iori and Yukari Takeba, as well as their personas Orpheus, Hermes, and Io, and also gave details on the combat and social link systems. Now, if you've never played Persona 3, literally nothing I just said makes sense to you.
Yeah, what is Persona 3?
Allow me to give you a little bit of context as to what Persona 3 is. Persona 3 is a JRPG that takes place in a fictional urban city of Japan called Tatsumi Port Island, which is in universe a man-made island. I always forget that, and I consider that super cool as a setting. But it's kind of a unique JRPG in that it has a very urban setting to it. And the entire point of the game is that you play as somebody who has joined a club called the Special Extracurricular Execution Squad, correct?
That sounds
right. First word, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
C's for short. Who is a group of students who have the power of persona, which means that they can summon a being from their psyche that can defend them from beings known as shadows. And I cannot get into all the Jungian psychology behind the game, because we'll be here all day if I do that. But the main plot of the game is that these students are the only people with this power, and they are some of the few people that experience a phenomena called the Dark Hour, which is a secret hour between midnight and 1 a.m. where the shadows come out and do stuff, bad stuff, to any humans that aren't awake during this hour. The whole game is basically centered around climbing this tower called Tartarus that only shows up in the dark hour and is like 200-something floors tall. But outside of that, it's also a game about making friends and bonds through a system called social links, which is you basically experience a character's story in 10 parts, and doing so successfully, hanging out with them enough to experience that whole story, will give you access to stronger personas, stronger powers, stuff like that. Persona Fusion is basically the only thing that messes with, and Persona 3, in later games, Persona 5, it would give you, like, abilities sometimes, depending on those social links, which I hope that sticks around when and if they make a Persona 6, because that's a really good addition, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
Some old school SMT fans didn't really like the social link system, considering it a replacement for the negotiation mechanic that was in past SMT games, which was you talked to demons and recruited them depending on what you said. The developers actually disagree with this, apparently. They believe that negotiations are still in the game, they're just disguised as social links.
Yeah, I can see that.
And as a note for anybody that is not aware, obviously they backtracked on this because demon negotiations came back in the latest game, Persona 5.
They sure did.
Which I have mixed feelings on, but overall I think it's a good addition. I enjoy it.
And then they renamed social links to confidants, so...
Yeah, it's a whole thing. The character designs in Persona 3 were done by Shigenori Sojima, who was given the job by previous Persona character designer Kazuma Kaneko, because Kaneko wanted Sojima to get more experience under his belt.
Soejima is amazing. For the record, it's like, the trio of Hashino, Soejima, and Meguro. Or like, for 3, 4, and 5, it's like the team.
Mm-hmm. But fun trivia fact about Kaneko, he would later go on to design Dante and Virgil's Devil Trigger forms in Devil May Cry 3.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So that's a cool little connection there. The game's UI, Persona 3's UI, was specifically designed to pop out during marketing. So that's why it's like bright blue and bright green, solid colors, contrasts very hard against the background of the game, because they wanted to make sure that you noticed it when you looked at the marketing. And I think it worked. I think it worked really well. The bright blue coloring was meant to evoke a, quote, cool and stylish atmosphere.
And it's really the color that like defines the game. Persona 4,
Yes.
Everyone thinks yellow. Persona 5, everyone thinks red. For 3, it's that blue.
It's blue, or sometimes it's kind of a greenish, but for the most part, yes, it's blue.
Yeah.
So there is actually footage of the original prototype of Persona 3 online. It's a brief demo. I don't know where it was shown, but it is the Gekkoukan High, which is the high school in the game, the hallways filled with shadows, and the most interesting thing about this prototype is that battles started immediately. There was no transition. Didn't move to a different area or anything like that. It was just, you hit the enemy, you're in a fight now. As they were developing for the PlayStation 2, this was not feasible.
Nope.
As a PS2 would have exploded after about 10 minutes of play. Did not have the memory to handle something like that. So obviously, in the final game, they add a transition and it goes to a different scene and yada, yada, yada.
I mean, they did for all the games going forward. That's really interesting that was the idea at first, and very Chrono Trigger-like in a way, but it's never something they ever got back to. Interesting.
Chrono Trigger is a very good example of that. Yeah, it was very similar to that. Unlike future titles in the series, Persona 3 has one, depending on who you ask, big flaw in it. And that is, your party members are controlled entirely by AI.
It is a big flaw, absolutely.
The developers maintain that the reasoning behind that was that they wanted the characters to feel like other people. They wanted them to feel like they were their own people, not just things that you were directing. There's just one problem with that. The AI in Persona 3 is really stupid.
Yeah, don't have the people be dumb then.
It's really dumb. Granted, there are people that have noticed that there are some story sort of details hidden in some of the AI behaviors, such as at the very beginning of the game, for a little while, Yukari will not summon her persona very often because in story, she's scared of doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Or Aigis will always heal you first, even if she is closer to death.
Yeah.
Nobody liked it because that is completely overshadowed by the fact that Hey Mitsuru do anything but Marin Karen. Do literally anything but Marin Karen. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It never hits. Stop it.
Yeah, Marin Karen is just a wasted turn.
And that's all she does.
Mm-hmm.
So the developers continued to maintain for a long while that no, this is actually the stylistic choice. We want to stick with it. And then when the game got remade in the PSP and in future titles, Persona 4 and 5, they undid that. You could control your party members.
Maybe give players more options. If they want to have them act like people, maybe give the players that choice.
Yeah, which Persona 4 does. By default, you can't control your characters, but you can switch them to control, which I still don't like. I think the default should be control, which is what it is in 5. But, yes, hey, to each their own. Game's localization is also very notable because it, unlike a lot of games in that period and beforehand, it strived to keep as much of the Japanese culture in the game as possible. Because this game is Japanese through and through. It takes place in a Japanese city. You're playing as Japanese students. There have been past Persona games had very infamous changes made to them, such as all the changes made to Persona 1, which I will not get into because A, I don't remember half of them off the top of my head, and B, man, go look it up. That's a ride.
So many of the names. Yeah, I'm so glad that they really kept it, very Japanese. Like, one of the best things about it, to be honest, from an American perspective.
Yeah, like, for instance, honorifics were kept intact in the game. So, like, if in Japanese they were referring to a character with Chan or San, they included that in the English dub, which some might find kind of weird, but it fits. It makes it feel like you are in the setting that you are in.
Yeah.
And a lot of modern localizations don't get that right, so...
Also, a lot of, the referring to characters by the last name. It's a very Japanese thing to do.
But certain character details were changed. For instance, the one that I saw talked about the most was Mitsuru in the Japanese version. Her second language is English, but in the American version, obviously that wouldn't make sense because she's already speaking English, so they changed it to French.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I guess I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, because there's no real way to portray they're speaking a different language now if the different language they're supposed to be speaking is the language they have been speaking this entire time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Persona 3 received a director's cut release a little later after its release called FES, which is the version both of us played.
Yep.
Which is the version most people play nowadays. It's the version that you can buy on PS3. It was the version you could find most readily in thrift shops and stuff. So, I mean, that's the version I own. So, hey. It adds a new social link with Aigis. Added some balance changes, I believe. But most notably, added an entire campaign called The Answer, which is generally considered not very good.
Yeah, not a good epilogue. Not good.
Fans are not big fans of The Answer. I've never met anybody that played it, outside of just characters acting really bad and the writing not being all that great. It's also just, it's stuck on hard mode. That's the one setting it has, as far as I understand. So, fans just don't like it. And it's just dungeon crawling, which in my opinion is the weakest part of Persona 3. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunate, but I mean, that's what it had. It also received a remake, a full-on remake on the PSP called Persona 3 Portable.
Yep.
Which, added some mechanical changes, mostly to bring it a little more in line with Persona 4. But the most notable change that Portable brings is an entire second campaign where you play as a female protagonist with her own social links and her own music and everything.
And clearly she's the best part of that game. Like, that game, I think, came out in like 2010. So it's like certainly notable years after 3. And you're right. Yeah, Persona 4 was out by that time. They reference Persona 4 characters, have a couple cameos. So yeah, like, if you can play Persona 3, it's hard to say between FES and Portable. Like, I think Portable is the better game, but you also, because of the PSP's lesser power, you don't get the character running around the world experience. Like the camera behind, the third person camera. You get a top down, go here and interact and do this. So it's a matter of like what you'd prioritize more. I mean, P3P, Persona 3 Portable, has the character party control mechanic. So, I mean, it's like, it's give and take. It's hard when we try to recommend this game to people to play for the first time.
Purely in terms of aesthetics, I prefer FES. But overall, among fans of this game, Portable is considered the definitive version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
For good reason. Like, the female protagonist is an incredible addition, and it's something that Persona fans have been screaming for Atlus to do again for years since then, and they just won't, because obviously it's a lot of work. Like, one of the only reasons a female protagonist campaign could happen in Portable is because it made the change to a more visual novel style gameplay, which meant a little bit less work in that way, which is a shame, but I mean, I'm sure that's their argument.
But it's also the reason when you followed people who were up in arms about all of Persona 5 Royal and, who's that girl? Is she female Joker? And it's like, it's why they wanted a new female protagonist as an option. It's because of P3P.
When people thought that Kasumi might be a female Joker, people were hyped. People were super excited because it's something they desperately want, and I don't blame them. It sounds like it would be a really cool way to re-experience a game you've already experienced. I've played a little bit of the female route of P3P. I think I made it to June, but some things were happening, so I ended up like falling off. One of these days, I'm going to go do another Max Link run, specifically of the female protagonist, because I want to experience that whole campaign in its entirety.
I went and played it. It's fantastic. The new music tracks are awesome. Highly recommend.
The characters of Persona 3 have shown up in various other games. Look, all I'm going to say is that Persona 3 is super, super influential. And it was a massive success for Atlus. And then later on, Persona 4 would come out, and it would be an even bigger success. And then Persona 5 would come out, and it's avalanched both of them.
Yes.
For the most part. So, but Persona 3 is the one that started it all. It changed entirely from Persona 1 and 2, which one day I'll play those. But I've never played them, and Persona 3 plays entirely different. But it changed that entire franchise to this. Again, much to old school SMT fans' chagrin, who for some reason were surprised and angry when Persona 5 was confirmed to have social links. And I'll still never understand that logic. But the characters of Persona 3 have shown up in various other games and media throughout the years since the release. Persona Q and Persona Q2, they show the entire cast shows up in both of those games. Again, Persona Q2 comes out tomorrow as of time of
today as of time of release.
Yeah, all right. So it comes out today. They're in that. They showed up in both Persona 4 Arena games on consoles. The whole cast eventually. Originally, it was just Mitsuru, Akihiko, and Aigis in Persona 4 Arena, but then in Ultimax, Yukari and Ken and Koromaru and Junpei all also entered the fray.
They're all older. I super dig it, but Ken still sucks.
Ken still sucks, but at least he brought the dog.
Yeah.
And they show up in both of those games alongside the cast of Persona 4, the sequel, and in Q2, also alongside the cast of Persona 5. And they also got their own spin-off rhythm game in the dancing series, being Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight.
I have that game. I really want to play it. I need to get to it, really. But it's just interesting, like, if you remember those trailers at all, if you do. Like, just hearing them in that theme song, just like, oh, like, remember how good it's been? Like, oh, back those times. It's like, yeah, I remember Persona 3. I remember those times.
The game was also adapted into 4 feature films. I've seen all 4 of them. One of them is very good. 2 of them are alright, I guess. And one of them is garbage.
Oh.
And I'll leave it up to you, listener, to try and figure out which one is which on those lists. Just kidding. The second one is very good. First and fourth are alright. And the third one is one of the worst anime movies I've ever watched in my life.
Ooh.
It's not good. It also got a spin-off anime that nobody watched called Trinity Soul that takes place I think like 10 years after Persona 3. And the only character in it is Akihiko. He's like a cop, but he's too old to summon his persona now. And it follows some other, I don't know. I've only briefly read a synopsis of this anime. I've been told it's not very good, and nobody watched it.
What happened to becoming a boxer, Akihiko? I mean, come on, what's up with that?
Outside of that, I mean, there's a manga, there are radio dramas, stage plays. Persona 3 was a big deal. And again, like, the series only got bigger from there to the point where I'd say nowadays it's semi-mainstream. Like, there's a character from Persona in Smash now.
There's Persona 3 music in Smash. So, like, if that's your exposure to this series, I mean, welcome. But
yeah,
it's just really interesting to see, like, this is the into like a really even a bigger series, arguably.
And like I've had that experience that I've said in the past when we talked about Metal Gear. That was my reason for getting into Metal Gear, because Snake was in Brawl.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned what Metal Gear was. And the thought that somebody else is going to have that exact same experience with my favorite series, that feels really cool. And apparently it's everywhere in Japan, Persona now. Mostly Persona 5, because that is the one that has gone mainstream. But Persona 4 is some places. And then I guess they admit Persona 3 exists sometimes. And then Persona 1 and 2, much to the sadness of the fans of those 2 games, which are apparently still very good games, those 2 games have basically vanished from memory for Atlas.
They're just different now by what we think of as the standard.
Well, they're not the Persona games that made $1 billion, so
yeah.
Why should Atlas care? Which is a bummer. I get it. And again, one day I'm gonna go play Revelations Persona and both halves of Persona 2. I would love to play those games one of these days. It's just the other problem is that those 2 are just so inconvenient to play now. There's no convenient place to play either of them anymore. I think Revelations Persona has only been released here on PSP.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the only place it got a release.
Revelations Persona is also on the PlayStation Classic.
Is it? Oh,
Yes.
right, it is.
Yes.
That's unfortunate for it.
I mean, if you want to get it cheap and...
That's true. But the other reason is that Persona 2, nothing's ever going to be more inconvenient than that. I think one of them's on PS3, but the other one's on PSP. And that's the only places you can play those 2. And in fact, one of those is the only time that game's ever been released in English at all. And it's just it's a mess. Those 3 games are a mess when it comes to trying to play them in English.
But you can beat up Hitler in it, so...
You sure can. But it's unfortunate for fans of those games, and I really do feel for them, but they're kind of irrelevant now. Unfortunately for them. But fortunate for us. So, one of the most memorable things about Persona 3's soundtrack is some of the vocals, most of which are done by one Lotus Juice.
Lotus Juice!
I tried, guys. I looked.
It happens.
I did find a few cool things about him. First off, he was born in November of 1979 in Japan, and then at age 8, he moved to America, where he grew up in Hoboken, New Jersey. And then he went back to Japan after graduating high school at age 18. And so he is completely fluent in English. You wouldn't know it based on some of his lyrics, but he does speak perfect English.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to see like when they had the big Persona concert event and there's Lotus Juice on stage and he's talking in English and it's like, yeah, that's pretty good English.
Yeah, he's basically a native English speaker almost. It's his second language, I would assume, because he moved here when he was 8, but like he speaks fluent English. And when trying to find information about this guy, apparently he is super cool. So cool that he has a Discord server. There's a fan club that has a Discord server, and he's in it. Granted, he's only said one thing, apparently, in the entire history of that Discord server, but he's there. He's labeled as Lotus Juice. And so when our friend Katie joined that server, first off, they greeted her almost immediately, which is a good sign usually. And when she asked a question of like, I'm trying to find some sort of detailed information on Lotus Juice's history, the response was, I can ask him for you, because apparently the admin just is friends with Lotus Juice. And according to the story, they became friends because after a concert, they bumped into each other at a pizza place and then just had dinner together. So from the sound of it, Lotus Juice is a super cool dude. And when I say that he grew up in Hoboken, New Jersey, that's like, I think 3 or 4 miles away from where our friends Matt and Katie went to like live. And I believe, if I remember correctly, they've said that like he went to their high school and everything.
Like that's bonkers, because that is who I first learned about Persona 3 from. So like it's all a weird full circle thing. It's wild. Lotus Juice is just the coolest, also primarily because he's only known as Lotus Juice.
Yeah, I apparently you added to the outline that you found a Redditor saying that his given name is Kenji because they asked him at a live event. I could not find a single source that had a single real name for him. Everything just referred to him as Lotus Juice and nothing else.
I just wanted to know, like, Lotus Juice real name, and like that's what it came up with. Kenji, okay, all right.
So maybe that's right, maybe it's not. I don't know. There's no way to confirm.
But he is just the coolest. And when you think about this game, we wanted to bring him up because, like, when everyone's just like, oh, the rapping in this game, like, it's really cool. Like, it's one of the weird, unique things about it. It's like, yeah, that's Lotus Juice. Bam.
Mm-hmm. His discography, he works with Shoji Meguro a lot, apparently. Mainly for Persona stuff. He's done the insert songs for pretty much every single Persona piece of media ever. Except for Persona 5 the animation, which didn't deserve him anyways, so it's fine. Because apparently that show sucks.
It's not great.
But he has also done a lot of insert songs for other anime, including, just to name a few, Katana Gatari, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Bungo Stray Dogs, Soul Eater.
Oh my god, Soul Eater makes a whole lot of sense now. Holy crap.
Those were just the ones that I recognized on that list. It was a list of like 20-something anime that he has written inserts for.
It's freaky. Like, I know that at least the first season soundtrack, and like I've never thought, oh yeah, that's Lotus Juice on some of the songs. Like, it absolutely is. Holy cow.
I don't remember what his insert was for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. From the sound of it, it takes place during part 2, but it's been a really long time since I watched part 2, so I don't remember. It was news to me. He's been featured on multiple other soundtracks in the Persona series, most notably in Persona Q. He did the rapping for the songs Light the Fire Up in the Night and Laser Beam, which are 2 fantastic songs.
Oh my god, I love Laser Beam. Laser Beam is the best.
Is so good. One of these days we'll talk about Q.
Yes.
Maybe. And he is also featured on Q2, like you mentioned earlier. Which, again, out today. as of time of airing, out today. It's weird for me to say out today because it's not for me, but you're in the future. He also, in Persona 4 Dancing All Night, he did the remix of Backside of the TV, which, in my opinion, is the best song in the game.
Down to the basement, replacement goes as placement. Big bucks payment, or dirty like a slave man. Began to lose patience to these complacent successes who assesses rules that assassinate us like me. A lot of confidence, but fall from vanity. Reason why I got a crew behind me, my family. Even if they try to bribe me, never ride.
Oh yeah, that one's awesome.
Really, really tough sell because that game's soundtrack is incredible overall. But I like Backside of the TV, the Lotus Juice remix, the best. It's so good. He does so well with that song. Unfortunately, that's all the information on Lotus Juice that I have for you. Go man SI. But I do have some information about the soundtrack itself. Funnily enough, I did learn some trivia about some of the songs on the soundtrack that I was not aware of before. For instance, the song Adventure to Act, which is the music that plays in Club Escapade, is the only song on the original soundtrack that was not composed by Shoji Meguro. It was instead composed by Yosuke Uda, who I'm not familiar with. But other than that, all the other songs on the original soundtrack, all Meguro.
And it's like half of them on the FES soundtrack and then all of them on the portable soundtrack. So yeah.
In FES, I believe, there is the option to change the music that plays in Tartarus, which is so needed.
Yes, absolutely. There is that.
And 3 of them are actually remixes from past Persona games. Maya Theme and Time Castle are remixes from Persona 2, while The Snow Queen, which is the one that I'm most familiar with and the one I know is the most popular of those alternate tracks, is actually a remix of the original theme from Revelations Persona.
That's really funny because I always picked Time Castle when I did that.
So yeah, that one's from Persona 2 then, which is pretty cool, actually, I think. Meguro actually considers Persona 3 to be the first time that he was fully able to realize his music in a video game, because, as he put it, the sort of bit crushing they had to do to get the music on a PS1 and the bad MIDIs they had to use just made the music sound cheap, and he didn't like that.
He's absolutely right. Yep.
But the PS2 allowed real-time streaming of music, which meant that he was able to really, really improve such pieces such as Aria of the Soul, which is in every Persona game, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But in comparison to the older versions of that song, Persona 3 heavily improved. It also allowed the heavy use of vocals, though I don't know why it says this, but the source I was looking at says that Meguro apparently believes that this fact is not special or exceptional in any way. All right, sure. Which is really funny when you think about, like, going back to Yu Miyake on Katamari, where he was like, games didn't do that, so I wanted to do that. To me, it's the most memorable part of the soundtrack is the vocal.
Well, I mean, you're right, but who's to say? We can't disagree with Meguro.
That's true. He is my king. According to the sources I was able to find, multiple sources that said, like, who wrote the vocals, who did the vocals, etc., who wrote the lyrics. Meguro did not actually write any of the lyrics. He composed the music, but the lyrics were actually written by Reiko Tanaka, Tomoko Komiya, and Shigeo Komori, and Yoshihiro Komori, which I assume those last 2 are related. But Lotus Juice did write the lyrics for one of the songs, and that is Deep Breath, Deep Breath.
Gonna double up now. 65 to 4 to 3, 2, one more time. Heavy punchline about the bruise. Let it go, let it out, let it go, let it out. Take a deep breath, deep breath, deep breath, deep breath. Lay low, lay high, lay low, lay high.
It bumps.
It plays during the first dungeon? Yeah, the first full moon. And also plays during Operation Babe Hunt, which is a very important section that if they ever remake the game, they should probably cut. Or maybe heavily rewrite. Because it's got some stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, according to my sources, that is the only song that Lotus Juice wrote the lyrics for, which I find it very funny that the only song that he wrote the lyrics for is the one that includes the line, "Gotta find your own way to shake your derriere." But it's a really good song, so what do I care? It shows. That song rules. And that's something, before we get into the critical tracks, that's something I gotta cover real quick. This soundtrack has so many good songs.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's incredible. It's so hard to cut it down.
There are songs we had to leave off even on the cutting room floor that both of us were like, oh, it hurts me not to put this one on there. But we'd be here if I had my way, we'd be here all day talking about the Persona 3 soundtrack. I love it so much. It's so good. But at the end of the day, we only got 5 critical tracks. And the first one of those, there's no other one it could be other than The Poem for Everyone's Souls, or as it is officially known now, Aria of the Soul. This song is a traditional piece for the entire Persona franchise. It is in every single game. That includes Persona 1 and 2. It serves as the main theme of the Velvet Room, which is where the main character goes to fuse their personas or summon personas they had at one point, etc., etc. It is the home of Igor and his attendant Elizabeth, or if you're playing as the female protagonist, Theodore. That poor boy. And it's one of the most memorable pieces in the series, mainly because it just shows up in every game. But this is probably the place most people heard it first.
Yeah, it's even to the point where, like, if you're playing this game around a significant other, they'll learn this song pretty quickly, and they're like, "Oh, that's the Persona song." It's like, yeah, pretty much is the Persona song.
And it's such a beautiful piece. And I went back and actually listened to the Persona 2 version, and Megaro's not kidding. It sounds real cheap. And very MIDI, but like, again, he didn't have anything to work with. He was working on a PS1. He did the best with what he had.
Also, when I do like singing stuff for projects, like I'll warm up with this song in the shower because that helps open up the vocal cords real well. So
nice.
There you go. Yeah.
After that, you have what I think is the second most memorable song in the game, Mass Destruction.
Watch out the moon, they diss out. Guess what this sound and bombs move round. So round up, don't ease your pace, cause enemies brutal. Moment of truth, there ain't no truth. You're the only one world, one love. But the battle goes on, shadows on mass destruction. Oh yeah, down, baby, baby, down. Oh yeah, down, baby, baby, Who are we kidding? It's the most memorable. Every song.
This is the most memorable.
All 5 Mass Destructions, all different versions.
This is the main battle theme of the game. It plays when you get into a random encounter with a regular enemy. And this is the first experience most people are going to have with Lotus Juice when they play Persona 3. And it's a hell of a first introduction.
And you better get used to it.
This is one of the few generic battle themes in a game that I never got tired of. Even the other 2 Persona games, I can't say that. Well, Golden kind of, because I think I like Time to Make History about 10,000 times better than I like, Reach Out to the Truth. I like Time to Make History much, much better. But like, Reach Out to the Truth, I got tired of pretty quick. Last Surprise, even, I kind of got tired of pretty quick.
Interesting.
But like, not tired of as in like, I hate this song now. Just like, man, I want to not hear this song for just a little bit. There's still very good pieces. But Mass Destruction, I never had that burnout.
Oh, and it's all about how it starts.
Oh yeah, the baby, 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 baby,
When everyone's all like, baby, 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 it's like, it's this song, it's Mass Destruction. And I'm so glad this at least made the cut for P3 songs in Smash, at least for the Joker
yes. Pack. And they replaced the word damn.
Damn.
But, I mean, Nintendo's gonna Nintendo. What are you gonna do?
You have in your notes here that it's just meant to be a prototype, though, originally.
Yes, apparently, according to Megaro, it was just meant to be a prototype song, and then during playtesting, it went over so well, and people liked it so much that it ended up being in the final game.
Playtesters are right. Listen to them.
Yeah. The lyrics were written by Reiko Tanaka, and the vocals obviously were done by Lotus Juice and Yumi Kawamura.
Yeah!
After that, we have Iwatodai Station.
So dance while I put you in a trance. Let's party. Boogie in your body. Work that body. Make sure you don't hurt nobody. I say, hey, 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 feel the fire with a burning desire. Yeah, get up off of that thing. Dance and shake and let's swing. Come on, go, let me rock the world.
Why is it called that? I don't know. This is the song that plays in the dorm.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's called Iwatodai Station, but it is.
Do you always think of Mitsuru saying, welcome back? Because I sure do.
I think of Akihiko saying, where have you been?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Have you seen that edit of Beneath the Mask?
No.
Where it gets to the point...
Oh, where have you been?
Gets to the point where it says, where have you been? And it just like edits in Akihiko saying, where have you been?
Where have you been?
Been searching all along.
It's so good. I can't find who did the rapping in this song. I don't think it's Lotus Juice. It doesn't sound like him.
No.
Though it might be slightly pitched down. I don't know. I love this song. I think this is among the... I can't say it's among the best, like, walking around at home themes, because all 3 Persona games I've played have such good themes for that. Like, Signs of Love is so good.
Oh,
Beneath
yeah.
the Mask is so good.
Uh-huh.
I think Iwatodai Station is one of my favorites. And it's one that if I'm just trying to chill and do something, this is the song I'll throw on. This and Signs of Love from Persona 4.
Mm-hmm.
One day we'll talk about that too. It's fine. But the most important thing about this song is that it takes some lyrics from the Space Jam theme.
Hell yeah, it does.
Being, work that body, work that body, make sure you don't hurt nobody.
Uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh.
Or with the body, make sure you don't hurt nobody.
It's word for word. It can't not be that, right?
No, it is. Yeah, uh-huh.
That's always my favorite thing, and I've ruined so many people's lives by pointing that out to them because they didn't notice until I pointed it out. After that, we have Memories of the City. I think this is among one of my favorite songs in the game, actually, and it's not one that a lot of people think about when they think about this game.
Yeah, it really starts much more bleak than the clip I played. I didn't want to bore you all, though, because it's really about the atmosphere and the time of the game and its place in the story, but it's an important song.
It plays for the first time during the New Year's... The spoilers for this game that came out in 2007, which, I mean, go play it. If you haven't played it, go play it.
It's not really a spoiler that'll ruin the game.
Yeah, it's not. It plays during the New Year's Shrine visit on January 1st, which is once you have been told that the world is going to end in 1 month and you have decided that you are going to fight the thing that's going to come down and kill all life on Earth. And so everything in the game gets way bleaker at that point. All of the music is replaced. The school music is replaced by something. The dorm music is replaced by something. And this replaces the music that plays when you walk around town. And that first scene of going to the shrine and just, there's no actual gameplay thing that you have to do when you go to the shrine. You can walk around, you have free reign, but pretty much all you can do is go talk to the other members of your party. But like, that was really impactful for me, at least.
Oh yeah.
All of January in Persona 3 is a massive downer. But, and it's also admittedly the weakest section of the game because nothing happens in January because it's supposed to be wrap up your social links and grind, get to the top of Tartarus. You have to. But just this song alone really gets me, man. It's so good. And the guitar part.
Oof, yeah. The soloing.
The piano part that's just slight pieces of memories of you. Oh, everything about it is so good. I love it. And last but not least, the most famous song to specifically come out of this game, the Battle for Everyone's Souls, or as it is officially known today, Battle Hymn of the Soul. Wow.
This is a damn banger. You're right. It's the best. I was tearing my hair out trying to pick the right 30 seconds clip. I just play the whole 5 minutes. Like, just immerse yourself in it. And actually, you know what? Check out the we're gonna tie in Space Jam again. So, the slam jam remix of Battle for Everyone's Souls is just the best.
So the coolest part about this, first off, this is the best final boss theme in the series. Genesis, get out of here. No, get out of here. Our beginning? What, you want to make me laugh? No, it's this one.
This is the best, yes.
Not that those two songs are, well, I'm not a huge fan of Genesis overall, but not that those two songs are bad. It's just that this one is a whole nother level. And part of the reason for that is because it is actually a remix of Aria of the Soul. But for most people, that doesn't hit them until the vocals start up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you suddenly realize that, oh, it's that song. Oh, it's the song that I've been hearing for 60 to 70 hours of game.
The Arcana is the means by which all is revealed.
Oh yeah, that's not even getting into the fact that it's one of the coolest final bosses in any video game.
Mm-hmm.
Just the whole ending of Persona 3 is one of I have a save file set right before the final boss. Because sometimes I just want to go redo that part. It's that good. And this song is part of the reason for that.
It's just incredible. Had to be here in the 5. No question.
The guitar is incredible when the vocals kick in. It's fantastic. All the piano bits, especially the part where it just everything else drops out and it's just the piano.
Mm-hmm.
That part's super cool. Oh, so that's my critical 5. So let's get to the cutting room floor. What do you got?
It's interesting that we're talking about a lot of songs that are from the original Persona 3 and the original Persona 3 soundtrack, but there are a couple that we have to mention that are from FES or from Portable. So one of these is a boss battle from FES, and it's Heartful Cry.
That's one of the only good things to come out of the answer.
Yeah, I mean, because I sure didn't play it, but this is just a great boss battle tune against some pretty important opponents, and man, it's a Meguro-ass guitar piece. Like, it's as Meguro as that guitar gets. It's 2 thumbs up. Love it.
It would later go on to be remixed as Igus's theme in Persona 4 Arena, where I actually prefer that version a whole lot. Both versions are very good, but I think the Arena version knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, it's just a really special piece, and it's weird that it comes from this epilogue that nobody likes. But there's so many that we wanted to put on here. I mean, there's When the Moon's Reaching Out Stars, there's Joy, there's Masters of Shadow. But we got to put on Memories of You. I mean, it's the ending theme. It gets you emotional. If you played the game, it brings back all those feelings. And I like Persona 4's Nevermore more as an ending song, to be honest, as far as like getting those like, oh man, you want to cry right now, don't you? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to cry over nostalgia. I'm not going to do that. But I mean, even the clip that used for this, it's the one that they use in FES's intro sequence. And it's like, has a whole lot of meaning. It's just a really, really special piece. Love it.
I think I also agree that Nevermore is a better song. But let's just agree that both of them are better than the Persona 5 song, which I don't even remember what it's called.
Oh, it's a big disappointment. Yeah. Sorry. Hate it.
I don't even remember what the song is called, much less how it sounds. Yeah, now I remember. I don't hate that song, but it's not nearly as good or memorable.
It's not the same.
It's not. For me, on the cutting room floor, first off is Burn My Dread, Last Battle.
Let's get it up. Then what you gonna do is drop a hammer down. Drop, run, drop, hammer, take it like a labor. You got blood all over, ash all over. Spit it out, some game's over. Tear up the fear, the end is coming in. Spit it out like a spear, I'll burn the dread.
Yo, let's give it up.
Which is the only time that the lyrics actually make sense in regards to what's happening on screen. Because it tells you you've got blood all over, ash all over, spit it out. Son or song, I choose to believe it says song, game's over. Because the game is over. This plays during the final encounter in the entire game. One of the coolest sequences that's ever been in a video game.
It is hype for sure. Yeah.
And this song is a big part why it's so cool. I love it. And it also helps that I believe this version of the song is what the protagonist is listening to when he gets off the train at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. After that, on the cutting room floor, I have Wiping All Out.
Goes 3 dots connect to rectangles, just like music sounds connect and rambles. Hell now, no man can run away.
This is the battle music for the female route of Persona 3 Portable, and it's a fantastic song.
I love it so much. It's the best. It's so good.
I think I like Mass Destruction better overall, but this is... It's more Lotus Juice being really cool.
Yeah, it doesn't surpass Mass Destruction, but like it measures pretty close up. And yeah, when you're going through that female main character route, you gotta experience it, you gotta play it, and it makes for a great battle tune for sure.
So, what will I never forget about Persona 3? It is among my favorite games of all time. I played it because we talked about everything coming full circle. I played it because of you. Because I think you talked about it on SMYN at one point, and then I was like, I want to play that, and I went and found it at a thrift shop, and I played it. Got to Hanged Man. Couldn't beat him because I was stupid and didn't like go fuse new personas, and dropped the game for 6 months. And then when I told that to a couple of our friends, they were like, dude, you were right. You were there. Like that's over halfway into the game.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, I should get back to that. And then I did. And then I beat it. And I have since max linked that game. I've done an entire max link run, which is very satisfying and also very hard. Because it requires a very specific schedule to be followed. One of the main strats of max linking Persona 3 is driving yourself to sickness in the first week so that you can keep going to the nurse's office to get a huge... And with that exploit, you can get max courage within like the first month of the game.
Oh, dang. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
And I've started a max link run of the female protagonist, but I haven't touched that file in years now, so I need to go restart it eventually. And it's probably among my favorite soundtracks in general. I don't know. I love this game. One day I'll play Persona 1 and Persona 2. I think that 3 is... This is going to sound like heresy, especially to you, but I think I personally rank 3 above 4. I like 3, 4, and 5 like so much. They're all among my top 20. Probably all among my top 10 if I had to guess. If I wasn't using a 1% per franchise rule. But I think P5 is my favorite. P3 goes after that, and then P4. And one day I will play Persona 1 and 2.
For me, it's For's characters that bring it over the top, to be honest. But yeah, they're all right there. They're all so close, and it's one of my favorite series as well. But 3 is what got my foot in the door with it. And honestly, I played Persona 3 FES during the fall after I graduated from undergrad. And so, like, you're used to all these years of going to school, and I'm like, hey, there's this game I've heard about. You kind of live life as a Japanese high school student, and you do all these other things. It's called Persona 3. I want to play it. And yeah, I played it that fall of 2010, and my life is never the same. Like, it's just one of those experiences that hit at just the right time and fell in love with it. It's the best. I think we've talked enough about this game, talked enough about Pokemon. I mean, it's just one of these weeks where we're gonna gush. It's our favorite franchises and things that mean a lot to us personally. So we learn new things about it, and hopefully pass that on to you. And we're just gonna gush, personal affections for it. Honestly, it's one of those times.
Yeah, it's these are very important games to us. Well, very important franchises to us. I can't say Diamond or Pearl is an important game to me, but
it's nobody's favorite.
Pokemon in general is, though. So
yeah. So it's sorry for the long episode, but we hope it was worth it for you. So that'll do it for this week on Original Soundchat. You can find me on Twitter at PeteSpeakeasy. Joe is over at the Dobaga. The video version of the show is over on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel over at rhymeswithasia.com as well, but it's the podcast version you really want. That's over on anondino.squarespace.com. Get that MP3 version on podcast storefronts all around the globe. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, really anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find us there. And you can also listen to music that is available on Spotify on the Original Soundchat Spotify playlist. So check that out. Joe's doing really good maintenance on that and making that available for you if the tracks are.
Boy, I hope literally any track this week is.
It's a big if, but we still like to keep it nice and tidy for you all. And then, of course, the social media for the show is over at Soundchat OST. Give us some feedback. How are we doing? And give us some suggestions, what you'd like us to cover or things for us to improve. Let's talk about next week, though. Joe, who are we talking about next week?
Next week's going to be a monster with Motoi Sakuraba for me.
And I'll be covering Masafumi Takada. So, yeah, it's going to be another big banger of a week. Really, really good time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Joe, let's play us out.
So, this is cheating, but I don't care. Fight me. I'm the one doing the show and you're not. So, I'm going to bring in the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate remix of Aria of the Soul because it rules.
Goddamn right. Shoutouts to Ace for the remix. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time on Original Soundchat. Take care.